everyone. We're just waiting for the broader audience to join us in a minute or two, and we will start. While we setting up, making sure your video is on. If you have a lovely background, you can share where you're calling from today as well. I can see many different pictures and backgrounds, and I can see also people joining from every part of Australia. Before we kick off, I would love to know where in the world in Australia you're joining us today. If you can, please drop your location in the chat. So for myself, I'm calling from Melbourne, Australia today.
And we've got a couple far-flung ones as well, Anna. I saw one from Singapore and one from California.
That's wonderful. Oh my God. Love to know how you hear from us, but welcome, welcome.
Sri Lanka in the chat as well.
Ooh, Sri Lanka. Wonderful. Keep putting your locations, and we would love to know. We know many of you are from regional Australias, and thank you for joining us. So, please amplify which your lovely town, and if you can name one of the crops it's famous for, love to hear that as well. Keep it vibrant.
Welcome to Josh from North Carolina.
Yeah. The reason I have the canola in the field is, while the key canola field just start harvesting this right now in Victoria, we have some lovely canolas. And unfortunately, I have bad hay fever, so I can only see them from the distance, not necessarily close to them. But yes, that's part of the farm projects.
So we've got
All right.
Toowoomba and North Carolina as well. Welcome.
Keep the location coming through. We'd love to know where you're dialing from.
I'm seeing a lot of New
Wonderful.
South Wales and Victoria at the moment. Let's see if
Okay.
we can get a few more.
Yes. Let us hear from Western Australia, Queensland. Where are you?
Quite a few dialing in from Toowoomba.
Nice. Wonderful. Welcome from our Sunshine Queensland. All right. If I may, I would start kicking off. So good afternoon and good morning, everyone. My name is Annatel. I'm a venture builder at Beanstalk AgTech. I'll be your MC today. First, I would like to begin acknowledging the Wurundjeri, Wurrung, Bonorong Bong Bonorong people from the Kulin Nation, the traditional custodian of the land on which I'm joining you today, and pay my respect to their elders, past and present. We recognize their care for and cultivation of country, and their knowledge and contribution to the productivity, innovation, and sustainability for Australia's agriculture, fisheries, and forestry industry. Welcome to the inaugural Beanstalk Virtual Field Day. Today's topic is bridging the gap from innovation to adoption. We're bringing innovators together with adoption partners to hear firsthand the challenge they face, identify the opportunity for testing, and connect solutions with the adoption pathways. A few quick housekeeping items from my end. The event has been recorded. We won't be running a live Q&A today. We would love to hear your questions. So feel free to drop your questions for the panelists and speakers in the Q&A functions. We will respond after the event. Here's what to expect today. We will start with an update from the Drought Venture Studio, and then move to the 3 critical topics, each beginning with a demo video, followed by a panel discussion. These topics are agriculture's biggest challenges for this decade: improving productivity, boosting profitability, and building climate resilience. Your role today is to connect. After each of the panels, There will be a Zoom poll popping up on your screen. Feel free to select every speaker and innovator you'd like to meet. Choose as many as you like. Beanstalk will facilitate these one-on-one introductions within the next few weeks. The opportunity starts now. I would now like to introduce our Head of Venture Studio, Marcus Agnew, for an update from the Drought Venture Studio. Marcus.
Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, everyone from wherever you're joining around in the world. My name is Marcus Agnew. I'm the head of the Drought Venture Studio program at Beanstalk, and we're delighted to have so many of you on the call today. The Drought Venture Studio is a 2-year pilot program funded by the Future Drought Fund, which runs until March 2026, that consists of 2 distinct phases. The 12-week Drought Resilience Lab program, which has so far supported 84 innovators across 4 cohorts, the first cohort commencing in September 2024 and the most recent cohort commencing in September 2025, and the year-long Ventures in Residence program, which is providing longer-term support to 8 highly promising ventures that were selected from within the early cohorts. Focusing on early stage R&D innovation, the Drought Venture Studio supports and accelerates the commercial journey of agtech innovators and innovations that have potential to build the drought and climate resilience of farmers across all geographies and subsectors of Australian agriculture, and using different technologies to address the various challenges associated with drought-like conditions. The profile of innovators that are admitted to the Drought Resilience Lab program are intentionally early stage. Often, no company exists when an innovator joins our program. They might be a solo academic researcher who has undertaken years of research that could have a drought resilience application. Or they could be a frustrated farmer who knows how to do something better, but is not sure how to commercialize that knowledge. Or they could be someone sitting in an adjacent industry who can see a technology working there, but is not sure how to take that into agriculture. Most innovators who join our program are at a technology readiness level, or TRL 3 to 7, which is on a 9-point scale, 9 being system proven and ready for full commercial deployment. Whilst programs supporting late stage companies that are closer to market, TRL 8 or 9, already exist in Australia, none existed to support the really early stage agtech innovators with their commercialization journey. Therefore, the Drought Venture Studio was designed to fill this gap, bridging the earlier technology transfer gap between R&D and commercialization, often known as the valley of death, which many startups fail to progress through. Unsupported, technology commercialization processes usually take an average of 5 to 7 years, but in agtech, this timeline often extends to well over a decade. Many innovators and businesses are unable to survive this length of time, and the majority of potential agtech solutions simply never make it to market in Australia. Commercializing for drought conditions, which don't happen every year, is even more complicated. The Drought Venture Studio assists innovators with customer validation, speaking with farmers, grower groups, the drought hubs and nodes about their challenges in their regions and for their crops or herds. And we help Ventures in Residence undertake proofs of concept, field trials and pilots, connecting innovators to grower groups, adoption partners and early customers to test and provide feedback on their concept, their technology or their prototype. This validation ensures that the drought resilience innovations being supported by the studio will be appropriate and well suited for Australian farmers, and helps innovators avoid costly misalignments or pivots later in the business's commercialization journey. Since we onboarded the Drought Venture Studio team in March of 2024, and we started recruiting in May of 2024, our first cohort started in September of that year, and we've been working with research and innovators from across the country, with every state and territory represented. The Drought Venture Studio routinely engages farmers and grower groups that represent thousands of farmers from across the country to share their input and feedback directly to those innovators to ensure that the innovations supported are aligned with the farmers' requirements and challenges. We know that Australian farmers are some of the most innovative in the world, and that they recognise the need to adopt new technologies to increase productivity, increase sustainability, and to compete globally. Technology created overseas is often not fit for purpose for Australia's conditions, so when contacted, Australian farmers have generally welcomed the opportunity to provide early input to innovators on the critical challenges they need to be solved and the obstacles to adopting existing technologies, as well as use cases and features that they would like to see. The Drought Venture Studio has received lots of positive feedback from farmers expressing a wish that more technology and companies engage them earlier in the development cycle and the commercialization journey to ensure that their needs are being properly met. We've worked with innovators from many of Australia's top institutions, some of which are represented on the screen here, and we're really proud to see that 50% of our ventures in residence are female entrepreneurs. As I mentioned earlier, the Drought Venture Studio focuses on those early stages of innovation, TOR 3 to 7. So many of the innovators will not reach full commercial deployment within the course of the 2-year pilot program. But despite that, we've seen enormous progress so far. 100% of the ventures across our first 3 cohorts reported that their commercialization status was advanced as a result of participation in our program. At least 11 of those are currently running trials with farmers and customers or preparing to run trials when the season is right. 10 of our ventures are either in market currently or are about to launch. Over the course of the pilot program, we're providing about $2.5 million in funding to our ventures in residence and Drought Resilience Lab participants in the form of working capital support or allied services, including supporting things like patent and trademark applications, marketing and design support, assisting with product or website design, attending industry events, or paying for trials. We're also very proud to see that 75% of our ventures in residence have secured additional funding or term sheets from other investors, venture capital funds, or institutions, showing the catalytic power of public funding to unlock additional private capital necessary to make these ventures succeed in the long run and delivering a public benefit for Australia and for farmers. After our 4th cohort formally concludes, we'll update these numbers and we'll continue to track the ongoing progress of our innovators as they undertake trials, proof of concepts, and pilots over the years ahead to get Australian-designed and Australian-made technologies into the hands of Australian farmers. Thank you, Anna.
Thank you, Marcus. Well, let's dive into our first theme, improving productivity. We will start with a short demo video featuring the 3 innovators who are tackling productivity challenge heads-on. Bear with us as I'll ask my colleague Ben now start to play the videos.
Hi, I'm Ed, CEO and founder of Drought. More than half of Australia's land is used for livestock grazing, yet management is still largely manual, costly and inefficient. So we've built Drought, a patent-pending, autonomous, machine learning-driven software platform to modernise livestock operations across grazing lands like these, feedlots, dairies and remote cattle stations, all providing real-time, offline-capable insights into livestock location, counts, health and welfare, water and infrastructure, all via autonomous drones and 24-hour fixed cameras, and very soon, autonomous long-range mustering to reduce helicopter use in the north. Shaped through on-the-ground trials in Australia, New Zealand, the US and Canada, we're backed by both local and international investors and supported by trusted partners. We're now launching commercially with US expansion on the near horizon. Dronehand is a farmhand in the sky, delivering better outcomes for farmers, their livestock and the environment.
Oh, hi everyone. My name is Aaron Kozovich. I'm the founder of Reschematic, which is an online platform that you see behind me. I've developed this platform over the last year based on my prior 10 years of experience as an economist evaluating lots and lots of different large-scale projects, demonstrating the positive impacts that they're going to have, economic, social, environmental, financial impacts. Many projects, most projects in fact, need to be able to do this in order to get stakeholders on board, make better decisions, get grant funding, get investment. The platform allows you to do that in a self-service way. So you can generate a model and start exploring it and look at different scenarios. It's really powerful. So if you're interested, happy to explain a little bit more on that later. Just reach out. Again, my name is Aaron Kozovich. But for now, looking forward to the panel discussion and all the discussions today. Thank you, Beanstalk, and I'm sure we'll talk soon.
Hi everyone, I'm Hugh Zhou, founder of Aurora Robotics. Let me show you the 2 big challenges our partner farm is facing. So here's one block of the orchard. You can see weeds have completely taken over the spaces between the apple trees, and it's a total mess. But the farm owner tells me that it's not that they don't want to mow, they just can't find enough labor. So here's the first big challenge, labor shortage, which leads to very poor turf management. Now let's look at the second challenge, the areas under the trees. You can see these spots actually look quite clean, but the farm owner tells me that they wish these areas were covered with grass, as grass helps keep moisture in the soil and supports beneficial insects. But today's mowers simply can't reach these narrow zones, so farmers end up with spraying herbicides, which dams the soil and wastes water. And that's exactly why we founded Arova Robotics, to create robots.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think the technology of the videos is not
turf
working.
management.
Okay,
Now let's
it's
look at
working
the
now.
second challenge, the
Yeah.
areas under the trees. You can see these spots actually look quite clean, but the farm owner tells me that they wish these areas were covered with grass, as grass helps keep moisture in the soil and supports beneficial insects. But today's mowers simply can't reach these narrow zones, so farmers end up with spraying herbicides, which dams the soil and wastes water. And that's exactly why we founded Arova Robotics, to create robots that take care of the eco-management and work where others can't. We've already built up a proof of concept prototype.
Yep. Thank you, Ben. Sorry about the hiccups, but that's technologies. So you've heard 3 innovators from the upcoming panel. Now I would like to hand over to my colleague Tom.
Yeah, thank you, Anna. And you know, what is a good demo or field day with some technical issues? That's just the way things are. So great to see such a great turnout today, and plenty of familiar faces as well. For those I haven't met yet, my name is Tom van Gemeren. I'm one of the venture builders in the Drought Venture Studio, and I'm incredibly excited to kick off our first panel discussion on-farm productivity today. And that really is a topic that hardly needs any introduction, as we know that improving on-farm productivity is increasingly critical, as climate unpredictability and water scarcity put pressure on farmers. It shortens growing seasons and increases income volatility. Combine all of that with skilled labor shortages and rising input costs, farmers face a challenging environment. All in all, they need to do much more with much less to remain globally competitive and build resilience against shocks. So on today's panel, you'll hear from Hugh, Ed, and Aaron, whose videos you just saw, who are boosting productivity in a variety of ways through drones and robotic solutions and software tools. And at Beanstalk, we genuinely believe that these agtech innovations can play a key role in addressing these farmers' challenges. However, we also don't have to sugarcoat it, right? We all know that sometimes adoption remains limited for some of these solutions, either due to high upfront hardware costs and the complexity of integrating new tools into existing workflows. And I already see Ali, she's nodding her head. So I'll dive into that in a second with you on the panel, Ali. So on today's panel, we're going to aim to explore what drives and hinders the adoption of productivity tools in Australian agriculture, and also learn how these innovators right here have developed agtech solutions that actually work and fit seamlessly into farmer operations. But we'll also look at the critical role industry and government plays in driving adoption. And on that note, we're thrilled to have Ellie Webb, Program Manager of the Farms of the Future initiative, with us today. Ellie and her team are leading a statewide effort to support farmers in adopting agtech, working with more than 700 New South Wales producers today to turn innovation into practical and productive change. So with that introduction, and I'm sure you'll do a much better job than I just did, Ali, I'd like to begin with the very first question for you. So through your role at Farms of the Future, you see on an everyday basis why productivity tools are so crucial. So I'll dive into why that is so crucial in just a second. But first of all, can you just walk us through what you do and how it supports the adoption of agtech?
I would love to. Thanks for the introduction, Tom. So as Tom's mentioned, I lead a program in New South Wales called Farms of the Future. We started working with farmers in late 2022. And at that stage of the program, we started off with the foundation of education. We know that there was an adoption barrier around digital literacy. And so we felt that was the right place for us to start in terms of increasing the adoption of agtech. Alongside of that, we believe demonstration of technology is a really important factor in helping farmers to adopt. and also having some independent advisors. So I've got a team of about 5-6 independent advisors across the state called ag tech specialists, and they sit in the regions to help farmers again with that independent advice about ag tech. We've also formed the first of its kind, an ag tech catalogue, which sits inside of a broader toolbox. And inside that catalogue are ag tech products from suppliers that we've run through a very stringent kind of vetting process. So they apply to be on the catalogue. They've got to address about 16 questions, and then we actually call farmers for references with the goal of forming a catalogue that can be trusted of products and suppliers for farmers. The final piece back then was a grant. So as Tom mentioned, we worked with over 700 farmers in the training room, and over 350 received grants to apply ag tech on their farm. Unfortunately, we don't have grants anymore, but we've extended our training offering, our education offering, to deep dive into tech areas rather than just having a general foundational basis in ag tech education. And we're also going quite heavily into more demonstration sites across the state. So that's kind of Farms of the Future, up to 1,200 farmers through the training rooms, which is really good to see.
Yeah, it's really is pretty incredible, and massive kudos to you and the entire team. The work that you're doing is absolutely incredible. So Ellie, just to follow up on that, I know that you're incredibly active and talking to so many farmers. From your perspective, sort of why are productivity tools so crucial for these farmers and producers?
It's a really interesting angle, I think, to take, is that perception, and it's a correct one, in that farmers first and foremost look to a productivity return on investment when they're thinking about adopting ag tech. So it is a really important one for innovators, but also anyone who's working with farmers to consider on their journey of ag tech adoption. Productivity will be that key that often gets them over the first hurdle. So productivity, for me, I probably look at it in a bit more broad sense. And I have been talking to my team, but also all the way up to the Minister for Agriculture, about the important role ag tech plays in what I call keeping farmers in New South Wales farming. Keeping farmers farming can look really different on each farm. So if you're selling a product to farmers, the most important thing, and there's a few people online I know that were at a recent ag tech supplier professional development day that we held down in Wagga, Ed's grinning. We heard from a great sales behavioural psychologist in sales, and particularly in rural sales. And his first thing was ask the farmer questions. And in doing it, in asking those really critical or sensitive, critical, pointed, important questions of the farmer, you're going to find out what their motivators are. For some, it might be safety, others security, but you'll hear from different people that might have markets into Europe that have an ESG dashboard in mind in order to continue to supply their beef into Aldi, for example. So whilst we can sit here and say productivity number one, the important thing I think is to communicate so that you know what that farmer's particular number one is, and it might really surprise you. We have just had a mid-program review. It's a bit of an evaluation. 63% of the farmers that we worked with said labour efficiencies was the very first benefit that they experienced. And I think we all know that that's going to be a really easy one to get over the line. That return on investment is clear. But then it got into some grayer areas, which we called unintended benefits, with sleep at night, peace of mind, etc. So productivity, yes, but keep an open mind about what those benefits might look like for a farmer on the ground. It might surprise you.
Yeah, no, Ellie, there was so much good advice in there that I'd love to unpack, and we'll do that over the remainder of the panel. I actually heard you mention a couple of things that sort of line up with what some of our innovators are doing, and I already see Aaron smiling, and I think he knows that I'm going to throw it to him because you were talking about the ROI of these sorts of projects, right? That's incredibly important for farmers to understand whenever they're looking at ag tech. What is my return on investment going to be? And I know that, Aaron, you're working on these sorts of project analysis. So can you just talk us a little bit about what you do in more detail and how that actually helps farmers improve productivity?
Yeah, thanks, Tom. And Ali, obviously, so timely in this ROI discussion. As an economist, I've spent my entire career focused on demonstrating return on investment for all sorts of projects. So not just agribusiness, but infrastructure as well. And I saw an opportunity to bundle up some of that knowledge into a repeatable product that anybody could use. So Reschematic allows agribusinesses to make interactive business cases themselves. You provide a bit of information about what you're working on, and it will generate a model for you, populated with all the references you need to explore it in depth, and to give whoever you're showing it to some faith that the numbers do make sense and have correct provenance. So this is making prioritizing business decisions among these businesses much easier, and then they can share that thinking around different scenarios as well. Yeah, so it brings a lot of the capabilities closer to the source, because the farmers, the agronomists, they're the ones with the knowledge, right? So feedback is from the clients that I have so far is really shown how the productivity gains can be immense, because they're saving huge amounts of time either having to outsource these sorts of evaluations or modeling, doing desktop research themselves. It kind of makes them look like a pro, even if they're not an
That's
economist themselves.
That's always a good thing.
Yeah.
So, thank you, Aaron, for that, and I really like what you're building, and I think it really has a ton of value for farmers and producers. And another thread that I sort of wanted to pull on that you mentioned earlier, Ellie, was around one of the major reasons to look at productivity tools, which is labor scarcity, right? We all know that there's labor shortage and skilled labor is incredibly hard to touch on, and one of the innovators here, or multiple of the innovators here, are working on solutions to help with those issues. So, Hugh, I'd like to throw it to you. I know that you've worked with orchard operators for many years, and you know that there's tons of productivity gains to be made. Can you sort of walk us through what sort of issues orchard operators are dealing with, and what they're looking to automate, and why?
Good talk. So actually before founding Aurora Robotics, I've been working at Monash University for 7 years on agricultural robotics, which gave me like tons of chance to talk to different farmers. And overall, I would say there are so many areas that farmers need to automate, but I would like to think of them in two categories. The first one is the tasks that humans can do, but they are really labor intensive. So from common jobs like spraying, mowing, seeding, pruning, harvesting, or soil sampling, to some less obvious jobs like tiring thousands of branches to trellis. They've been really tedious, repetitive, and time-consuming, and perfect for candidates for robot to handle. And the second category is the tasks that are really hard for humans to perform. Things like yield prediction, crop diagnostics, and operations at nighttime. Actually, there are quite a few practices are better done at night.
Hugh, if I may jump in for 1 second, because we didn't really get the opportunity to see your entire video, so can you just give us a peek under the hood, so to say, of what you're building right now, and sort of what the feedback has been that you've been getting from farmers?
Oh yeah. We are currently building robotic mower as a starting point to address the two challenges from the farm owners or site managers. The first one is it helps with everyday mowing tasks for general areas, reducing pressure of labor shortage, so that the farmers can have more time for high value tasks. And we design our product for hard to reach areas, which is a much bigger challenge, as many of these overgrown spots are packed with obstacles or crops, or the narrow fruit trees, like interplant areas, or even underneath solar arrows.
Yeah.
The traditional machines simply can't get in there, and this lead to people end up spraying herbicides, which harms soil health, and doesn't support long-term sustainability. So what we are building are robots to maintain these hard-to-reach areas, and without additional labor requirements or
Yeah.
relying on chemicals.
No, that's incredibly interesting. Thank you for sharing that, Hugh, and to give us a bit of a fuller picture of what you're working on. I'd like to throw it as well to Ed for a second. So, Ed, I saw you messaging a little bit earlier that you love the work that Ellie and Farms of the Future is doing. Just can you talk a little bit about what for you as an agtech innovator, how important is industry support and government support in getting commercializing your solution?
Yeah, thanks very much, Tom. Yeah, it's incredibly important. I mean, the work of groups like the DPRID, Farms of the Future, and others do to support innovators like us is it's really immeasurable, to be honest. The number of grants and programs, and just to know that they have your back in talking to farmers and finding those pain points and getting through to them, and then also getting through to us, because sometimes we need to be told, you know what, you probably should talk a little bit more to the farmer before spending any more money, which is really, really important. So, the work of the AgTech Toolbox, where it is so, uh, it has so much due diligence involved with making sure the product does actually provide a return for the farmer is really, really important. And it takes away that feeling of that ag tech providers are snake oil salesmen.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And Ed, I know that congrats on the recent pre-seed raise, by the way, and I know that you're, going to be on farm with trials and things like that. How have you been going about communication with, and that was another topic that Ellie sort of touched on, and I'll get back to you in a second, Ellie, about that. But how do you go about communicating these benefits to the farmers and really gaining their trust? What is sort of your approach and how, does that come across as genuine?
Yeah, and that's a tricky thing. I mean, ag as a whole is a really interesting industry. I mean, it's the second largest adopter of new technology and innovation of any industry in the world, second to mining and energy industries. However, it also has the stereotype of being extraordinarily traditional and conservative in their
Hmm.
choices. So what farmers really want to know is, again, going back to what Aaron and Hugh were talking about, is ROI, is can your solution provide a significant return? And that could be in literal cash, or it could be in time savings, it could be in uh, ease of use and all these other things. But essentially, it has to translate to something that has value to the farmer. Now, for myself, how do I communicate this to them? Well, I came from a livestock farming background myself, so I understand a little about the pain points they experience. But the first thing and the main thing I do is again talk to them. I go to almost every event I can go to, every field day, every major thing like Beef Week or Sheepvention or all these types of things. And I talk with them and I find out what's going on, what's troubling them, what is the pain point that's most disturbing them. And then I see, can our solution help with that? And if it can, we continue the conversation. And so far, this has led to well over a few hundred expressions of interest, trials with global agribusinesses, both here and abroad, and more. But the key thing for myself, you mentioned about keeping it genuine, is listening and
Yeah.
learning. You know,
Hmm.
for me, the product is never finished. We're launching now. That doesn't mean it's finished. In 20 years, it doesn't mean it's finished. It'll always be adapting to what farmers need. Because in the end, that's what we're here for, is we're here to help farmers. We're not here to just sell something cool.
Yeah, no, incredible. I really like that comment, Ed. That's amazing. I saw Ellie. I feel like you're jumping at the bit, Ellie, to jump in. So, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts? And then I'll have a follow-up question for you as well.
I think it's so critical to consider that constant iteration. And we heard from an agtech supplier last week before last in Wagga, and he iterates every 6 to 9 months. if he's not completely reworking either the materials that his product is made from or some of the inner workings, passing on some cost reductions through to complete and utter overhauls. And this astounded me that you would be iterating a product at such a rapid rate, but that was how he was getting in front of what I would call generic suppliers or the generic creation of his product. And so I love that sense, Ed, of like, don't stop. You just simply don't stop. And I think a really critical element to that is listening to your market. So don't stop listening, keep your ears open and be brave. It's tough out there, I know, but I know you guys are all brave. So keep being brave for us.
No, thank you. And Ali, we've been focusing on a lot of the positive stories here because we love these innovators and they're doing some amazing things. But I'd also love to hear what are some of the key things, and I know that it, for example, isn't listening to the farmer, but what are some of the key things pitfalls that you see AgTech innovators walk into that prevent adoption?
It's a great question, and one that we have unfortunately seen a little bit of at the coalface. I will preface this to say that we mainly work with commercial suppliers, so I can only really talk about that end of the innovation kind of journey for you guys. But one of the biggest barriers to the adoption of AgTech that we found, and we continue to find through research with the AusAgriTech Association, but also other avenues, is a poor after-sales support.
Oh, yeah,
So
absolutely.
I think getting that piece, I understand we live in a massive country. I understand how difficult it is. So my suggestion would be to start small and do it well. Don't necessarily think you have to tackle this big nation all at once, because if you get it wrong, farmers are fairly brutal and fairly swift.
Yeah.
You've got a really hard road back to gaining that trust that everyone's spoken about today. So we had people through the AgTech Toolbox and through that grant program limit themselves to the areas that they would supply so that they got it right. And they did really well. Farmers, they're a really tough crowd. You've got to get it right. So
I fully subscribe that. It's something that often is undervalued as well, the after sales service that you were just mentioning. All right, I'm going to have to wrap up this panel fairly soon, but I want to give Ed, Aaron, and Hugh all of them approximately 10, 20 seconds. So be very quick. What is next for your business, and what is something that you really want to share with the audience? So I'll start with you, Ed. What is next?
Wow, what is next for us? Well, as you mentioned, we just closed a pre-seed round. So what's next is formal commercialization. We've already got early users out there, but we'll be launching to the wider public, and in somewhere between 6 to 18 months, we'll be also doing that in North and South America, following on from trials we've had over there.
That's amazing.
So,
We'll keep
busy
tracking it
times.
very closely. Good. Best of luck with that, Ed. Aaron, over to you. What's next?
Well, over the last year, I've been, focusing a bit of attention on investors, a bit on customers, and what I sort of learned from that was it's really hard to do both. So I've been focused 100% on customers, acquiring new customers. I'm still focused on that. To what Ali just said, I sort of narrowed my segment specifically to Australian customers and agribusiness. So this is allowing a greater focus, and over the year ahead, I think we'll see many benefits
Aaron.
coming from that.
Amazing. All right, and finally, last but not least, Hugh, what's next?
As we are currently testing our robots in 3 different Victorian sites, and we've secured 23 farms across Australia. So next step, we are extending our field trials to different scenarios across different crops, and hopefully we can build our second patent over the next couple of months and speed on the commercialization.
Thank you. Thank you so much, all. A big thank you to all of the panelists for their insights. It's really been great to hear about all of the work that you're doing to bring practical productivity to farmers. I could keep talking to all of you for hours, but I won't do that. I saw a question in the comments. How can we connect with these people? So I'm sure that many of you will want to keep the conversation going and dig a little deeper. So with that, I'll hand it over to Anna for next steps. If Anna is Anna there?
Can you hear me? Sorry, I was just
Yeah,
muting
yeah, we
myself.
can.
So thank you for all the panelists. I'm cautious of time. So now is your time to connect. So you should be able to see a Zoom poll just pop up on your screen. Feel free to move that onto the side just in case, if that's the case. What I'll do is just to recap all the panelists you've just heard from. So first, Ali Webb. She is the project leader of Farmers for Futures at the New South Wales DPIRD. Today, Ali leads the Farmers for the Future project that connects producers with practical solutions and emerging technologies, as you have heard, and always guided by the belief that the best ideas start from the ground. I think we heard a lot from Ali with very practical advice and also a huge online presence. So definitely check out the directories and what they do in the Farmers for the Futures. Next, Ed from Drone Hand. So he's delivering the autonomous drone and fixed camera system that replace the manual livestock checks with real-time AI insights for animals, water, and infrastructure. Feel free to put in and connect with Ed directly. Next, Aaron from Schematic. It's a platform that helps agribusiness quickly model and communicate the impact of their project. Remember the ROI? You should talk to Aaron. It replaced the very slow and expensive spreadsheet modelings with a very intuitive and self-service tool for generative economic modelings. Hugh from Aurora Robotics, who are building these autonomous mowing robots and designed for these hard-to-access farm areas. Their systems reduce labor dependencies and herbicide use while improving soil health and long-term sustainability. We also like to highlight 2 additional innovators from our community who are also addressing productivity as well. First, Jörg Hoffmann, the co-founder of X42 Monitoring. X42 is offering a simple, subscription-free water tank monitoring for homes and farms. Their product is release and filled pre-orders, give users real-time water levels and consumption insights without internet or ongoing fees. So these X42 is helping producers plan ahead, prevent these run-outs, and manage the water more efficiently. All of it directly boosts operation productivity. Last one, James from DroidMap. It's a cloud platform built process and analyze large-scale drone and satellite imageries. They are already supporting government mapping, university environmental research, and drone service providers by turning raw imageries into usable insights. DroidMap helps farmers, agronomists, environmental teams make faster, data-driven decisions that improve productivity. The poll is still open. Please select as many of these speakers and innovators you'd like to connect. As we mentioned, your selection will help us to make these meaningful, warm introductions beyond today's sessions. Okay, the poll is closed. So thank you for your response. Let's move to our second theme, boosting profitability. I'll now ask Ben to play the demo videos.
Hey, I'm Beck, the MD of ResinAg. We're adapting solutions from the medical, mining and oil and gas sectors to deliver scalable solutions for farming. A key problem that farmers face is that there is no measure of plant available water in the industry. There are lots of moisture probes, but they overstate the amount of moisture that plants can actually uptake, as a lot of it is locked in pores too small for roots to be able to access. MRI technology can directly measure the amount of water available to plants, and we're shrinking it, along with other measurements like radiometrics, until they can fit in the knife blade of a seed at a time. So we can give clay content, plant available and total moisture, grain size distribution, density and compaction, all in motion and retrofit to existing equipment. In the future, you could use this data to adjust seeding depth. We're currently testing and breaking our prototypes in the field, and we'd love to chat with you if you'd like to join us on this journey. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Sarah Preston. I am the co-founder of SwapTech, which is a company that is spun out of Federation Uni Ballarat. We're an animal health. Hi everyone, my name is Sarah Preston. I am the co-founder of SwapTech, which is a company that is spun out of Federation Uni Ballarat. We're an animal health.
All right, everyone, let's try this again. Clara, did you want to try just quickly?
I will. Hold on 1 second.
Apologies, everyone.
Hey, Clara, we can't hear the audio.
Actually resistant their sheep are to worms. This will save farmers a lot of money on drenching and become more profitable farmers into the future.
SureStock Agri-Solutions is helping producers to unlock profit that's currently being left unrealized. Around 10% of cattle underperform in the feedlot. They eat the same ration but deliver poorer gains and attract grid penalties. That lost performance costs the industry hundreds of millions each year. SureStock can change that. Using a rapid version of qPCR technology and proprietary RNA biomarker panels, we can identify within hours which animals are thrivers, ambers, or strugglers before they enter the feedlot. This means producers can sort smarter, allocate feed more efficiently, and avoid investing in animals unlikely to return value. The result is clearer decisions, lower input wastage, and a stronger profit margin. Our diagnostic platform is backed by 17 years of research and robust field validation. Our vision is to extend this single blood test to include health, disease risk, and welfare biomarkers, reducing additional sampling costs and giving producers a faster, simpler way to protect profitability.
That's the three innovators on the panel for boosting profitability. Now I would like to introduce my colleague Ben, who will be moderating the panel. Over to you, Ben.
Thank you, Anna, and hi, everyone, and welcome to our second panel conversation. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Ben Lever, and I'm one of the venture builders in Beanstalk's Venture Studio team. And in this panel, we'll be diving into this topic of boosting profitability. They say that money makes the world go around. So it seemed like, improving profitability should be a no-brainer to winning over users and customers. But today I'm interested to learn, how straightforward that actually is, whether profitability means the same thing to every farm and agribusiness. And even if we can agree on what profitability means, what does it take to get profitability driving solutions actually adopted? And so to help me with this conversation, I'm joined on this panel by the three amazing innovators who have just shared their amazing field demo recordings with us. We got there eventually. So we have Beck from Resin Ag, Sarah from SwapTech, and Oriel from SureStock. So thank you all for joining us. And looking forward to diving in to hear your thoughts, especially given the diversity of technologies that you're working with, and also the very different challenges that you're tackling. But before we dive into that, I also want to introduce you to the fourth member of our panel as well, Pip Grant. Pip is the CEO of Riverine Plains. So thank you, Pip, for joining us. And I'd really love to throw it to you to introduce yourself rather than me speaking for you. So yeah, please, Pip, tell us a bit about yourself, Riverine Plains, and I guess also noting that some people on this call might not really know what a farming system group is as well in a lot of detail. So maybe you could touch on that too.
Thanks, Ben. So I'm Pip Grant, as mentioned, and I'm an innovation specialist. And so I specialise in the adoption of science and tech across health, climate, and ag, commercialising high impact techs, the fun area where I like to play and work with a lot of scientists, engineers, startups, and scale ups over the last decade, along with thousands of farmers and rural community members. We are located at Riverine Plains on the border of New South Wales and Victoria, and we represent over 400 farmers in southern New South Wales and northeast Victoria. A farming systems group can often be called a grower group or a producer group, and they're all largely, there's a few national groups like SPAR, so Society of Precision Agriculture, but a lot of them are quite local that run a lot of on-farm trials. And so farming systems groups are formed by farmers that want to share what they've learned and share different innovation. Most farming systems groups are 25 years or more in the making. And a thing to keep in mind is it's an opt-in for farmers. They've already selected how they want to get their information, and we try to actually just consult our farmers and be able to align the projects and technology companies and researchers and scientists that we work with the key priorities for their farming systems. And so what growers in our area might need might be quite different to what a farmer in southern Queensland might need or in WA might need. But we do work nationally as farming systems groups to information share. And so often if you talk to one, you've talked to 10 of us. But we also work locally with other wonderful groups like the Catchment Management Authorities, Local Land Services, and land care teams. There is a lot of people working on the ground that are farmer facing. So there is a lot of on the ground support if you know where to look into. We're also a partner in the Victorian Drought Hub, we're the northeast node, and so that's where we're working collaborative with a lot of stakeholders, including all of those on-ground stakeholders, technology developers, scientists, universities, to get the best outcomes for farmers in terms of drought preparedness and resilience. We're also members of the Agritech Association, and we partner with them on a national program called Scout for Australian Farmers, which is providing upskilling for those people working on the ground to better understand the technologies that people are delivering. About 5 years ago, I ran the Evoke Ag program and had basically every founder's number in my phone, and now there's over 600 companies in Australia, and it's my full-time job keeping up what all these tech does. And so upskilling and keeping people abreast of what your technology does and the value proposition that you present is really important.
Yeah, that's amazing, Pip, and we'll certainly touch on value propositions in a little bit. But thank you for giving that really good overview of not just Riverine Plains, but sort of how farming system groups fit in with the sort of the broader taxonomy of the ag ecosystem. And there's lots of nuances there in terms of the different regions and the different farmers and crop types that they support. Obviously, you work with and connect with lots and lots of farmers in your region with your farming systems groups. I'm really keen to get your perspective on this topic of boosting profitability from what you hear. And so I guess in your experience working with groups of farmers, what are the most common points in the production systems that you hear about where profitability is being lost? Really keen to kind of draw out some of the pain points that you're hearing, and if there's any that might be surprising for us as well.
Well, farm businesses are like most others, and so it's going to be your inputs and your finite resources, that are the major controlling levers. And so
you can look at any farming system and say, let's look at the Southern New South Wales mixed enterprise. And so 80% of our farmers, they've got livestock and cropping in their system. And so their profitability is largely dictated by rainfall, things like seed quality and timing. And so it's often not about so much profitability, but how do I manage risk in my annual production cycle, or how do I manage risk across a 5-year period? And so poor Beck from Resin Ag, I've been stalking her since last year in terms of, I'm like, well, I want to know where all the missing water is in some of our farmers' profiles. Can I borrow your probe and just, follow a coring rig around and actually see whether we can get better models? And so there is a really low hanging fruit. So if you're thinking inputs, constraints, so moisture, but also, how do I, a day or a week late in sowing could mean the difference between $100,000 in profit at the end of the year. And so when you understand where the risks are in a farmer's business, you understand where the opportunities to increase profitability, but protect profitability.
Yeah, that's really, really interesting, Pip. And it really just points out sort of the knife edge that these agribusinesses are working within. Sarah, I'd love to bring you into the conversation now. And obviously some of the examples Pip has given are quite different to the space you're working with sheep, of course. But when you first started SwabTech, I guess you would have viewed profitability in a particular way in terms of the profitability pain points you might be addressing. So maybe you could talk a little bit about the profitability pain points that you've observed in the interactions you've had with farmers as part of building out SwabTech.
Thanks, Ben, certainly. And hi to everyone that's on the call. I guess, what we're trying to commercialise is an easier test to measure worm resistance in sheep. So currently the test involves taking individual fecal samples directly from the rectum of sheep. And I guess in my own experience, and my brother has a sheep stud and he doesn't like doing the actual testing and collecting the poo. And I thought that was probably one of the main reasons why a lot of producers don't actually do this testing. There's also, someone brought up labour. There's huge labour shortages, and that's also another reason why people aren't doing this, because breeding worm-resistant sheep obviously mean you don't have to drench as much, and you're not going to be paying for the costly drenches. But one of the real reasons when we actually got out onto farm and spent a day in the sheep yards with the producers, it was actually when they can't actually measure. So for the current test, you've got to have a high infection. In drought and dry conditions, they couldn't reach those infections. There's lots of farmers in South Australia that never reach those high conditions because they have worm species that don't produce many eggs. So that was the real, what they saw the value in our product, is because they can measure without a high infection. They could do this any time of the year and really start to see, reduce labour from drenching, but they will also reduce costs of drenching as well.
Yeah, no, that's good to hear, Sarah. And again, hearing some of these common themes around cost and labour being a big one as well, driving some of those profitability challenges. Maybe just building on these profitability pain points, it'd be good to sort of now switch gears a bit into talking about how these translate into value propositions, and more specifically, how you sort of communicate those value props and what resonates well. I know, Beck, at Resin Ag, your innovation obviously does address some profitability challenges, but it also addresses other ones as well, like productivity and climate resilience, and Pip kind of alluded to some of those as well. So, when you're out and about and you're speaking with farmers or even farming systems groups, how do you balance out the different value propositions you may be delivering? And, what have you found resonates with, particular people, and when?
Yeah, thanks, Ben. Profitability has been a real, being able to calculate it and communicate it has been a real key challenge of ours, I guess, because the data's fundamentally really difficult to come by. It's either not available or really difficult to come by about the yield losses that farmers are seeing, particularly around emergence due to inadequate moisture. And anecdotally, like driving down to Esperance or whatever, you can definitely see paddocks where only a third or a half of the crop has come up. So, theoretically, if that's due to not insufficient moisture when they're seeding, then we could have a 10, a 30, a 50% yield increase, right? But we drastically need trials, to be able to see whether that's actually the underlying cause and whether we can make that much of a difference. So that's a hard one for us to communicate as well, because it's a loss. We're sort of saying maybe we can offset that loss and drive up the profitability. But productivity is a bit easier to explain. We're going to put these sensors on existing equipment while people are seeding. So that's an obvious efficiency win. And if we look forward from there, that's sort of the sensor then enables autonomous seeding into correct moisture. So that's less expert users could do it, or that's even a fully autonomous things are available from there. And from a climate resilience perspective as well, we can communicate that growers, they already have an amazing understanding of their land, and an amazing intuition for what they need to do, but climate is making that harder. Climate change is making that harder, right? So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
No, that's right. And
Sure.
thanks, Beck. And I really love that you touched there on running trials, because obviously there's some intricacies in communicating the value proposition, but equally important is demonstrating it as well, and trials form such a big part of that. Or I'd like to bring you in just to close us out to talk about that, and then we might we'll have to move on to the next panel. But Oriel, maybe you can just touch on for the audience here your journey with Shortstock in really demonstrating your value proposition in terms of trials. And I know that that trials have been critical for the development of your technology. Maybe you can just talk us through some of your experience with running trials.
Okay, so my product is essentially very much based on discoveries that we had from trials. That the entire idea of our product was a product of trials rather than as a cause of trials in the first place, because we were looking for markers of resilience or susceptibility to challenges that animals are exposed to, livestock are exposed to. And in that process, we worked with feedlots, we worked with producers, and we came to the realization that the trial process informed our decisions, in the sense that we identified that between 10 and 30% of cattle that were going through feedlot were failing to thrive. And so our sort of situation perhaps is a little bit different, in the sense that our product is a result of the trial rather than as a cause of the trial. Now we're coming at it a very different way. Now what we're doing is saying, right, we know that this is what our results are, and we know that this is how we developed our product. Now we need to actually go back to the producers, and now what we need to do is have pilot trials where we can show not only that we can identify the thrivers and the strugglers, but we can sort of say, look, this cohort here, these are going to be the ones that you need to think about managing in a different way. And so that's where our pilots come in right now. So we're very early on in the piece, but for us, we've realized that we need to collect an awful lot more metadata. We need to collect a lot of more, because our database, our data understanding is based on having multiple understanding. What are the animals being fed? What are the changes in the feed that they're going through? What are the medications that they're getting? What vaccines are they getting? All of those factors tie into us being able to develop a better product. So it's a matter of also listening to what the producer wants. We can't go in. This is one thing that we tend to be, as a researcher, this is where I've come from, we tend to be a little bit arrogant sometimes and say, well, this is what we think that you should do. We can't do that in this situation, in the real world situation. We have to go to the producer and say, right, what's your productivity metric? I appreciate that each individual level, we know that there are multiple different levels. We know that there are producers that sell directly to feedlot. We know that there are integrated farmer producer situations. You know, we have that there are multiple different levels that exist, and we need to appreciate that and be able to develop our product so that it hits all of those individual points.
100%. Yeah, I love all of that, Oriel, and thanks also for you know, not only sort of touching on the different types of customers that you need to speak with and engage with, but also that comment you mentioned earlier on around that trials led you to sort of moving into that product development journey. Everyone, we'll have to stop at the panel conversation here. We could certainly keep going on for a lot longer. We have touched on some of the pain points associated with boosting profitability, some of the experiences in communicating those, and then also some experiences with demonstrating those through trials. But thank you, Pip, Sarah, Beck, Oriel, for your time and insights and being honest. And now's an opportunity for everybody in the audience to connect with them as well. Back to you, Anna.
Thank you, Ben. So it's connection time again. I noticed in the comment, few people didn't get a chance to submit. You should be able to see the polls popping up on your screen now. So making sure you submit this time. And also after today's event, tomorrow you will get a post-event emails, and we will share all the contact details and your chance to connect with these innovators and the broader communities. And also we know that the videos you show may be a bit hiccup, so we will make sure you can access these videos as well. So please, connect as many as possible. This is where we see the value is. So just want to introduce two more innovators in the communities who is also addressing these boosting profitabilities, and both of them have done numerous number of trials. So just want to give that. So the first one is Ellie Whelan from the Just Meat Proteins. It's a company turning underutilized meat streams into high-functional, allergen-free protein powders for food and nutrition brands. Their product is over 90% meat-derived with exceptional solubility, neutral taste, and strong nutrition value. What does that mean for meat producers? It is a model to create new premium outlet for low-value meat inputs and leave carcass values and improving whole animal profitabilities. They have already done 11 pilot trials with leading nutrition brands across Australia, and they're looking for connections with food brands, manufacturers, and strategic investors around the world. So connect with Ellie if you're interested. Next one is Mark Dunn from SmartGate. He's a co-founder for SmartGate, which is an autonomous AI-powered gate system that identifies animal species in real time and control access to watering point. It helps producers reducing total grazing pressure, managing feral animals, and cut labor costs, while improving drought resilience through smart water and feed utilization. They have 2 multi-month field trials underway, providing both durability of the hardware and accuracy of the recognition systems. They are looking for partners in the pastoral companies interested in collaboration in field deployment. They have strong potential to protect land conditions and lift productivity for remote grazing systems. So just to recap, you can see all the speakers and also the 2 innovators I just mentioned, making sure you submit your connection request. Okay, 5 seconds before we close the poll. Choose as many as you like. All right. Okay, poll is closed. So now I hand over to the last thing, but also important, is building climate resilience. What does that really mean? I'll let my colleague Angela introduce the panel. Angela, over to you.
Are we doing videos with Clara first?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Cecilia from Beanstalk Grow in my spring veggie garden. Growing food's getting tougher with climate extremes, chemical resistance, and poor fertiliser efficiency all cutting into margins and yields for growers. So they're looking for viable solutions, and that's why we built Breeze Coat. It keeps sensitive inputs like microbes alive and active longer, and we can coat higher doses of crop enhancement inputs than any other technology in the world getting them onto seeds and fertiliser and out into the field. Here's some high-dose humates on fertiliser that I'm going to use to increase the early season root growth for my tomatoes. That was impossible before. So let's see how that goes. And we'll also looking forward to some results of pot and field trials by our test partners for these agronomic doses. So if you're looking for inputs that work smarter under pressure, let's chat.
Hey, I'm Nick, founder of Aquifer. I grew up in northern Victoria in the Golden Valley. And when I was a kid, to be honest, I thought that everyone had channels that delivered water to their house. When I moved out, I quickly realised that's not the case. And more recently, I've realised that if you're managing water trades in the Murray-Darling Basin, you've got significant headaches. You've got paper forms, you've got wet signatures, you've got documents in filing cabinets, emails, spreadsheets, the works. And it's just really not what a modern market needs. So Aquifer is providing the digital infrastructure to connect all of the users, whether you're an irrigator, a water broker, a regulator, a water authority, so the data can move freely between everybody. Really, in the end, we're aiming for faster trades, more efficient trades, and less compliance risk in the system. And that, in the end, we really just want to get water to where it's needed most, when it's needed most.
Drought costs Australian agribusinesses more than $1 billion a year. Floods cost us another couple of billion. We spend more than $2.5 billion on importing fertiliser. We can't control the weather and we can't control global fertiliser prices, but we can control what we do with our nutrient-rich wastewater. The MTE team from Australian National University are building technologies for harvesting high-value nutrient resources out of wastewater so that those resources can be reused. Being able to harvest high-value nutrients and clean water out of our wastewater will help to reduce the expenses we spend on fertiliser imports. It'll help reduce algal blooms and it'll improve the triple bottom line for Australian agribusinesses.
Wow, I had a whole setup ready for the climate resilience panel, but I couldn't have said it better than the innovators. What was it Caitlin said? We can't control the weather, we can't control global fertilizer prices, but there are a few things in our control. And that's why we're pretty privileged to work with these innovators in the Drought Venture Studio, right? Because with droughts, floods, unpredictable rain, impacting sowing calendars at best, decimating yields or cropping plans at worst, climate resilience is so not a buzzword anymore. It's just not a sustainability nice to have. It's a business reality. And so we're lucky to have those three innovators today. Nick, getting water where it needs to go through a productivity tool. Caitlin, letting people recover and reuse valuable minerals from their wastewater, letting them, reduce the cost of those inputs and improving profitability when times are hard. And Cecilia, whose coding technology makes it possible to have multi-trait seeds and fertilizers that literally were not possible before because of how old coding technology destroys the seeds. And also we're pleased to have Ollie Lelieve, who you guys might know from his great work with Humans of Agriculture, taking stories from all across Australia, to the internet, making them visible, making them relatable in really short, lovely 10-minute forms. So I want to start with mindset and the voice on the ground. Ollie, you've interviewed dozens of producers. How are you seeing farmers think about and deal with climate topics today? I mean, where does it fall among a long list of concerns?
Angela, thanks so much for having me, and what a session it's been so far. So I guess in a nutshell, I just want to preface, so I'm not farming currently. Over the last 15 years, I've worked on farms in Australia, Canada, predominantly on the East Coast here. But over the last 6 years, I've had the opportunity to travel literally Australia from top to bottom, from the Cape right down east to west. I think if I think of where it falls in terms of priorities, when it comes to weather and climate, it's the number one used app, probably the number one concern. But I think Caitlin said it before, when it comes to what farmers can control, you have no control on the outcome of weather. And if you were, you would just be incredibly backable by financiers, and you'd be owning a lot more farms. I think there's probably two farmers that come to mind, because I think when it looks at climate, you can look at how do we treat it as ultimately what it is, which is risk management. But in that, there was a guy I used to work for by the name of David Kinninmonth for quite a few years. And David used to look at it of going, okay, well, what's the outcome we want to get to, but what are the trigger points of things happening? He was, I'll say, ruthless in terms of, if by October 1st we hadn't had this amount of rain, well, we need to get rid of this amount of stock. From that, I guess it meant that he was able to manage what he had in front of him, and instead of reacting to what was happening across the season, he responded because he had that plan in place. And so I think one thing it's that we're probably putting like a broad brush on all producers. I think it comes down to the really good ones and what are they doing. And then another one who comes to mind is Nigel Kieran. He's in the central west of New South Wales, and he talks about drought being his biggest opportunity in business. To paraphrase him, he says, if you can do the opposite of what the herd's doing, then that's how you really get ahead in business. And so in that last drought through 2019, what Nigel did, he'd set his business up to be able to invest and buy feedstocks. Although he was buying feed incredibly high, he was buying stock low. And that meant that when that market turned, he was able to accelerate his opportunity in the new market. So I think what a farmer's doing, I think it's, the really good ones are looking at climate as it's a key business risk. How do you respond to it? But then also too, how do you not do what everyone else is doing to really get ahead and accelerate?
That's a super interesting response, Ollie, right? Because if you're thinking from a government perspective or even like a social impact perspective, you want everybody to win. But in the business world, some people are thinking a little bit ahead and are really clued in and are using data to get it right and are using market signals, whereas others are kind of watching and waiting, or let's say it's happening to them, right? Like South Australia's had some of the worst droughts, and then we've met farmers who lost their entire inventory and crops with floods. So so it sounds like a bit of mindset change or open-mindedness, looking out to how else can I be thinking differently for some farmers, whereas others are finding tech that's out there. What's interesting as well, and I've worked with climate and impact businesses for the last 10 years, is no one succeeds on their climate impact alone. Everyone is almost having to sneak it in behind economic gains or operational gains. There has to be lots of value given to the farmer to let them even consider it, right? And I feel like all of the innovators in the room have kind of gone through that journey. Can you tell me a little bit, maybe we start with Nick, about your journey to demonstrating that value? How do you show them why it's worth doing this, and what were some of those breakthrough moments?
Yeah, thanks, Ange. And it's an interesting conversation, isn't it? I think to pull on something that Ollie said before is that farmers are just risk managers, right? Like that's most of their job is just managing a whole heap of different risks at any one time and doing that. And so I think what we found when we're trying to demonstrate that value and build that trust, to clarify, our customers right now are water brokers who work with the farmers. So like we've got an intermediary in between there. But you think of that intermediary's role, and they're a trusted advisor. And so they're a trusted advisor in risk management. And so I think that one of the mistakes that I often make, it's hard that you get a solution in your head and you want to go out and sell that solution to your potential customers. But what you really need to do is go and understand. And I think everyone was saying in that first session is you've got to ask questions, right? You've got to understand the pain points and the pinch points in their business and what's creating pain for them. And by definition, they're customers if you're like me and you're selling to an intermediary. And then you want to go and show them and prove to them that you're there to help them. You're building something that's going to solve their problems and help them deliver value, whatever they're trying to achieve at the end, right? And I think every one of those customers or stakeholders in that flow, you just need to show that you're there to create value. And that's the best way to create trust, right? Is that you're there, you're a partner, you're a trusted partner in their journey to do whatever they're trying to do.
Yeah, thanks for that, Nick. And I think that's a good segue into, sometimes you build your solution with a particular value in mind, like a particular problem that you're solving. And then you talk to the customer and they're actually interested in a different thing. Like I know Cecilia's smiling because when her dad built that special airflow technology, they thought, oh, this will be great. It'll be less damaging to seeds, and that's why people will buy it. But people have been excited for a totally other reason. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's a very good point because if you're building new technology, you really don't know its capabilities till you get physical proof. And a big one for us was, yes, it is much more gentle on seeds, but when we talked with a whole lot of fertilizer companies at the fertilizer conference, they all said, well, our biggest problem is we can only get a tiny dosage of humates and other valuable products onto fertilizer because it just starts to bridge and clump and dissolve and so on. So could you solve that? And so we just gave it a go and found we can put 20 times more product onto things like DAP and MAP. And that's really powerful because it's not that you might need 20 times more humates, but it's the combination of a range of products to make it something that can deliver higher performance on the field and go straight out onto the field using existing equipment so growers don't need to change the way they do things, but could get higher performance. And just at Codicil, so one of the products we were looking at, they know that the performance is much better, around 4 or 5 times higher than they can currently do. And we're going to test that properly in trials.
Yeah, and it's interesting as well for some technologies, you will have a different thing that's exciting to a different member of the ecosystem. So the people who are manufacturing seeds and fertilizers were like, oh, it removes dust, or we can stack multiple treatments onto it. So now, we can create a more hyper value seed. But then for the grower groups you spoke to, they're just like, oh, you can remove one whole step from the process instead of planting, instead of doing the fertilizer and the pesticides and the fungicides separately. It's like it's all in one. So it's so important to figure out who can benefit from what and highlight that part in the messaging. When we were prepping for this, Caitlin, there was a really interesting problem you told me about that I think a lot of other climate businesses face, which is sometimes it solves a big problem in the aggregate, but the way that an individual customer experiences that problem might be too small for them to care. Can you tell us a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So our team are from a crop engineering background. So the technology that we're developing is inspired by plant functions. And so you're taking input wastewater, pulling out high value nutrients and clean water. But it's a platform technology. So it also works for, say, for example, the mining industry. And earlier, Ed was saying that the ag industry is sort of the second biggest adopter of new technology, and the first is the mining industry, and that's certainly been our experience. I was having a little giggle when he said that, because we've got some amazingly supportive mining industry partners that are helping us to develop this technology for their application. And if you sit there and think, okay, high value nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium resources that you want to rebuild into fertilizers, they've got their inherent value per ton. But if you look at copper, rare earth elements, it's incredible value. And then we've got that situation of turning wastewater, which is a problem for every single sized agribusiness everywhere, turning that into value is a little problem for everyone. Whereas for an enormous mining industry, they're like, this is a massive product. This is costing us, problem. It's costing us billions of dollars per year. Yeah, we're gonna give it a go. So the good news is that that sort of support from these really forward-thinking, brilliant mining industry partners is helping us to overcome a lot of the technological challenges, and then the ag industry can just slide in behind and be like, so this works. Can we give it a go? So that'll be really exciting.
That's a really interesting strategy, right? Who do you de-risk the tech with first? It's whoever has the most to gain from it at the moment, even though, farmers can benefit later. It also makes me think sometimes, who's the customer? Like, who would want to pay for this and why? I've seen a few other startups who are like, let's say climate data, you understand, what's happening to the soil health now, how is this going to change in the future, species availability. And for a lot of farmers, they're just like, that's not what I'm thinking about on a daily basis. I don't think I need to care. But that's something that 5 years later, if let's say your crop is not thriving anymore, it's like, oh, I should have thought about that X harvests ago. But maybe the RDCs are thinking about it, industry associations, or like the ag minister in a particular state. So who is the customer that can work with this? And maybe for those members of the ecosystem, how do you play that smoothing function? Like if producers on the ground aren't ready to be the customer yet, but it's a problem, how do you kind of step in and be the customer in the meantime to de-risk it? Ollie, I'm going to come back to you. What do you think the stories and the challenges that they've talked about, getting to adoption, how they kind of have to pivot the story a little bit to make it make sense? Are you seeing any challenges that the producers are facing? Is it that they don't know that there's solutions for some of this stuff that exists, or they're stuck behind that idea of I can't change the weather? What can they do differently?
Yeah, big question. I think what blew my mind before what Ali said in the chat was 28 different exposures before someone's willing to implement a new practice. Like that's insane. If you think of that's what it takes to get a sale effectively. And I know in this panel, I think we've talked a lot about the customer. I think probably one thing that I think front of mind is like when we talk about farmers, and this is something I've learned through our business, is like we talk about humans of agriculture, but like a human of agriculture to us is a professional or someone who thinks like a professional in ag. So it's like we can say farmers in here, but a horticulture vegetable grower is very different to a dairy farmer. And so I think probably one of the best examples out there is there's a bank, and I won't name them, but they will say our customers look like, and they'll say when we drive up the driveway, there's not branches down, the trees are clear. Our customers are the top 20%. They're the early adopters. And I think probably something that I've like picked up here in this conversation is it's very easy to kind of go like broad scale and go like all of our customers. But I think Nick and Caitlin and Cecilia here have gone like they know who their customer is. And then front of mind as the three of you were talking was what Stuart Ty from Buller Group talks about. And he talks about like, who's my customer's customer? And so he thinks of how do I solve the pain point of my customer's customer, because that's going to make the sell a hell of a lot easier. And I think just thinking of the geographical challenge in Australian agriculture, firsthand, like if you're trying to sell one-on-one to farmers, I would say you don't have a hope in heck. And I think that's where the distribution channels, you really need to use them. It's where, as many have said, the trusted advisors are. And ultimately, when it comes to addressing the needs, it's going, okay, well, maybe we don't need every agronomist, but the agronomists who wear this type of shirt, who deal with this type of customers, they're our people. And that's why we're being really focused on how we get to our customer and the outcomes we want.
I couldn't have picked a better wisdom bomb for you to end on, Ollie. So since we need to wrap up the panel, I'm going to ask each of the innovators to just leave us with one update or ask and one message for the people in the room. As we mentioned earlier, there are grower groups. There are folks from like state ag. There's people from RDCs. What do you want to leave them with?
Me first? I can go first.
Go for it.
Perfect. So Aquifer is already, we're live and processing trades across 2 states. And with the real aim here, like just to confuse the customer's customer, we also are engaging with water authorities and state governments and federal governments just to muddy the waters even further. So we want to become the operating system across the whole thing just to get water to where it's needed most as quick as possible. So if you're any one of those groups or you represent people who have a say in those places, then yeah, really keen to talk about how we can make water data more transparent for growers to make better decisions and make those trades as transparent as possible.
Thanks, Nick. Caitlin, go for it.
Yeah, sure. So we're really keen to connect with everyone out there who's ever, stood knee deep in ag industry wastewater and going, how do I turn this into money? We're really grateful for GRDC support. So they're helping us to do the number crunching to figure out, for any given grower or ag industry, if they adopt this sort of technology, what would be the return on investment? So that was another theme that came up earlier today. So we're super grateful from that. But one of the challenges for us is that we need groups from everywhere, because this is a technology that helps with the sort of circular resource use. So we need livestock industry wastewater, pull the nutrients out of that, give that nutrients to the growers so they can be, saving on fertilizer costs, as well as, helping to prevent apparently 26 million tons of fertilizer resources went flowing down the Murray River that helped lead to that algal bloom. Let's catch that and use it instead of causing algal bloom. So everyone who wants to be part of that sort of ESG journey, as well as having access to secure clean water and fertilizer resources, please reach out. Thanks.
And Cecilia?
And we've applied for funding to do a co-design with grain growers to actually establish what are the benefits of high load stacked coatings on fertiliser for them. So I'm really keen to connect with as many grain grower groups as possible in WA and Victoria, New South Wales, etc., that we can pursue that project because, yeah, we think it can deliver a lot of value.
Appreciate your time, everyone. Anna, back to you for the Zoom poll.
Thank you. And I know we're a bit over time, so thank you so much for the people who stay online. So just bear with us for a few minutes. We want to use this time, precious time, for you to connect. You probably have seen a link also from Clara in the chat. So as a reminder, definitely feel free to connect with many innovators directly. And you can also check out our website where you can connect with them on their company website and LinkedIn directly. Let's use LinkedIn. This is the tool we're using. But so for connection times, you're just able to see the poll already. Just want to introduce the two more innovators in the climate resilience. First of all is Guillermo, the founder of Aquaterra. So Aquaterra provides a simple all-in-one soil sensor with integrated connectivity that installed in minutes, no cables, no drillings, and external telemetries. I've seen their devices. Definitely, it's the next generation of soil sensors. You think the technology is solved, but they actually deliver the real-time moistures and the data up to 1.5 meters. So connect with Guillermo right now. Next one is Johnny from C2 Diesel. Johnny is helping farmers across become fuel self-efficient by processing a portion of their oilseed crops into renewable biodiesels from their own machineries, reducing both cost and reliance on fossil fuels. The team is now building a pilot factories in partnership with Charleston universities, with strong interest from grower communities around Wagga Wagga. So if you're from the regional New South Wales, want to see what that looks like, feel free to reach out to Johnny. The poll is still up, making sure you're making the connection requests, as many as possible. If you missed it or you're watching the recordings right now, you can reach out for connections as well directly with Beanstalk. All right. Making sure you click 5 seconds before the poll closing. And I was so thrilled to see so many comments between AgTech innovators together for collaborations. This is also the point of it. I think many of you also have a collaboration opportunity between each other. So, events like this is where you also can connect with each other across, despite this huge and beautiful country, despite the geographic locations. All right, poll has closed. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this inaugural Beanstalk Virtual Field Day. We heard from these incredible innovators working on the tools that can help with productivities, profitabilities, and climate resilience. You also heard many of them are platform technologies, which means commercialization is not a direct route, but a winding roller coaster. From adoption partners and industry voices from Ollie, Ali, and Pip, who can help to bring these solutions to the field, are also all a voice of trust, I would say. Great to hear these different perspectives and ideas. I think this all give us a lot to think about, and for all of us to play a role as the ecosystems when it comes to how we can help to bridge this gap between innovation to adoption. Here's what's going to happen next. We will make sure the follow-ups of these warm introductions will happen for every speaker and innovation you heard, and the ones when I introduce happen in the coming few weeks. So watch out into your emails. Please visit our website. The links that Clara posts, you can click on them directly. You should be able to see all 84 alumni from our Drought Resilience Labs. Feel free to connect with them directly there as well. If you have opportunities for trials and regional field days, please reach out and share them with us. We want to make sure our innovator can access them. As you heard from Ed, it takes many events as possible to really spread the word and listen to the users. So if you have these opportunities the innovator can tap into, we'd love to hear from them. Last but not least, we'd love you to share your experience from today and with your network or social media. The opportunity to bridge the gap for innovation to adoption is here. It starts with the connections you make today. Thank you for being part of the ecosystem. Have a great rest of your day. Bye for now.
Thanks, Anna. Bye, everyone. Great having you on.